Chapter 17: The Frisbees of Dreamland. Taking place in Germany's forward edge of the battle area, between East and West Germany, Tom Clancy describes what the initial air war would be like between NATO and Warsaw Pact nations in the mid-1980s. He writes, "The view would have been frightening to most men. There were solid clouds overhead to 4,000 feet. He flew through showers that he more heard than saw on this black night, and the black outlines of trees appeared to reach up and at him in his speeding fighter. Only a madman would be so low on such a night. So much the better," he smiled inside his oxygen mask. Colonel Douglas Ellington's fingertips caressed the control stick of his F-19A Ghost Rider attack fighter, while his other hand rested on the side-by-side throttle controls in the left side cockpit wall. The heads-up display, projected on the windshield in front of him, reported 625 knots, indicated airspeed 106 feet of altitude, heading of 013. In around the numbers was a monocolor holographic image of the train before him. The image came from a forward-looking infrared camera, and the fighter's nose augmented by an invisible laser that interrogated the ground 8 times per second. For peripheral vision, his oversized helmet was fitted with low-light goggles. "Raising hell over our heads," his backseater reported. Major Don Isley monitored the radio and radar signals, as well as their own instruments. All systems continue. Nominal range to target, now 90 miles. "Right," the Duke responded. It had been an automatic nickname for Ellington, who even looked vaguely like the jazz musician. Ellington relished the mission as they were skimming low-level over the angular terrain of East Germany, and their Frisbee, never more than 200 feet off the ground, jerked up and down to the pilot's constant course adjustments. Lockheed called her the Ghost Rider. The pilots called her the Frisbee. The F-19 Alpha, the secretly developed stealth attack fighter. She had no corners, no box shapes to allow radar signals to bounce cleanly off her high bypass turbofans, were designed to be made a blurry infrared signature at most from above her wings, appeared to mimic the shape of a cathedral bell from the front. They curved oddly toward the ground, earning her the affectionate nickname of Frisbee. Though she was a masterpiece of electronic technology, inside she usually didn't use her active systems like radars and radios, which made electric noise that an enemy might detect, and the whole idea of the Frisbee was that she didn't seem to exist at all. Far over their heads on both sides of the border, hundreds of fighter aircraft played a deadly game of bluff, racing towards the border, and then turning away both sides, trying to goad the other into committing to battle. Each side had airborne radar aircraft with which to control such a battle, and so gain the advantage in a war, which though few yet knew, it had already begun. "And we're getting a quick one in," Ellington thought. "We're finally doing something smart." He had 100 missions over Vietnam in the production F-111 Alpha fighters. The Duke was the Air Force's leading expert on covert low-level missions, and it was said he could bullseye a chuck hole and a Kansas tornado at midnight, whatever that means. That wasn't quite true. The Frisbee could never handle a tornado. The sad truth, the F-19 handled like a pig, a consequence of her ungainly design, but Ellington didn't care. Being invisible was better than being agile. He judged, knowing that he was about to prove or disprove that proposition. The Frisbee squadron was now penetrating the most concentrated SAM belt the world had ever known. "Range to the primary target is now 60 miles, Isley advised. "All on-board systems continue nominal. No radars are locked onto us. Looking good, Duke." "Roger that." Ellington pushed the stick forward and dived as they passed over the crest of a small hill, then bottomed out at 80 feet over a wheat field. Duke was playing his game to the limit, drawing on years of experience in low-level attacks. Their primary target was a Soviet IL-76, mainstay an AWACS-type aircraft that was circling near Magdeburg. Agreeably, within 10 miles of their secondary target, the E-8 highway bridges. The mission was getting a lot hairier the closer they got to the mainstay. The more radar signal hit their aircraft, its intensity growing at a square function. Sooner or later, enough signal would be reflected back to the mainstay to be detectable even by curved wings made of radar-transparent composites. All the stealth technology did was to make radar detection harder, not impossible. Would they be seen by the mainstay? If so, when and how quickly would the Russians react? Keep her on the deck, he told himself. Play the game by the rules you practiced out. They had rehearsed this mission for 9 days in Dreamland, the top-secret exercise area in the sprawl of Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada. Even the E-38 Sentry could barely make them out at 40 miles. And the Sentry was a far better radar platform than the mainstay, wasn't it? That's why you're here to find out, boy. There were 5 mainstays on duty, all 100 clicks east of the inter-German border. A nice safe distance, what with over 300 fighters between them and the border. 20 miles, Duke. Right, call it off, Don. Still no fire controlling emissions on us, and no search stuff is lingering. Our away, lots of radio chatter, but mostly west of us. Very little vox coming from the target. Ellington reached his left hand down to arm the 4 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles hanging under his wings. The weapon indicator light blinked a lethal friendly green. 18 miles. Target appears to be circling normally, not taking evasive action. 10 miles to the minute. Ellington computed in his mind. 1 minute, 40 seconds, 60 miles. I see. Read the numbers off of a computer-keyed Navstar. Satellite navigation system. The mainstay would not have a chance. The Frisbee would not begin to climb until she was directly underneath the target. 14 miles. 12, 10, 8, 6 miles to be converted air transport the mainstay. She just reversed her turn. Yeah, she's jinxing. A Foxfire just swept over us, Isley said. Even a MiG-25 interceptor, presumably acting on instructions from the IL-76, was now searching for them with its high power and small arc. The Foxfire stood a good chance of acquiring them. Technology or not, mainstay might have us. Anything locked on? Duke asked. Not yet. Isley's eyes were glued to the threat receiver instruments. No missile control radars had centered on the Frisbee yet. Coming under the target, right, climbing now. Ellington eased back on his stick and punched up full afterburners. The Frisbee's engines could only give him Mach 1.3, but this was the place to use all the power he had. According to the weather people, these clouds topped out at 20,000 feet, and the IL-76 would be 5,000 above that. Now the Frisbee was vulnerable, no longer lost on the ground, clutter her engines radiating their maximum signature. The stealth aircraft was broadcasting her presence. Climb faster, baby. Tally-ho, Ellington said too loudly over the intercom as he burst through the clouds, and the night vision systems instantly showed him the mainstay 5 miles away and diving for cover in front of him. Too late. The head-on closing speed was nearly 1,000 miles per hour. The colonel centered his gun sight Piper on the target. A warbling tone came into his headset. The Sidewinder seekers had locked onto the target. His right thumb toggled launch-enabled switch, and his 4 fingers squeezed the trigger twice. The Sidewinders left the aircraft half a second apart. Their brilliant exhaust flames dazzled him, but he did not take his eyes off the missiles as they raced for the target. It took 8 seconds. He looked them all the way in both missiles, angled for the mainstay's starboard wing. 30 feet away, laser proximity fuses detonated, filling the air with lethal fragments. It happened too fast. Both of the mainstay's right side engines exploded, the wing came off, and the Soviet aircraft began cartwheeling violently downwards. Seconds later in the clouds. Jesus, Ellington thought as he dove back to the ground and safety. Nothing like the movies. The target was hit and gone between blinks. Well, okay, that was easy enough. Primary target gone. Now for the hard part. Aboard an E-3 Sentry circling over Strasbourg, the radar technicians noted with satisfaction that all 5 Soviet radar aircraft had been killed within 2 minutes. It all worked. The F-19 really did surprise them. The Brigadier General in command of Operation Dreamland leaned forward in his main chair and toggled his microphone. "Trumpeter, trumpeter, trumpeter," he said, then switched off. "Okay, boys," he breathed. "Make it count." With NATO tactical fighters hovering near the border, 100 low-level attack fighters broke clear, and over the ground, half F-111 Aardvarks, the other half GR-1 Tornadoes, their wings heavy with fuel tanks and smart bombs. They followed the second wave of Frisbees, already 60 miles into East Germany, fanning out their ground targets behind the strike aircraft. All-weather Eagle and Phantom interceptors, directed by E-3 sentries, circling over the Rhine, began to launch their radar-guided missiles at Soviet fighters, who had just lost their airborne controllers. Finally, a third team of NATO aircraft swooped in low, seeking out the ground radar sites that were coming on to replace the cut radar coverage of the dead mainstays.